Hello, welcome back to the Devil on the G-String. After seeing Kanon off the next morning, I head to my desk. It's nearly the end of the year, and I've been neglecting my Azai Corporation work recently. There are only 2 days left before the tournament. Tomorrow's Christmas Eve, and I don't know what to do. This is bad. I bought a magazine this morning after seeing Kanon's name on the cover. The article's title, Azai Kanon's Connections to Underworld Crime Syndicates Revealed. The public has always kept its knowledge about Kanon and the Soniyama Group on a somewhat tacit level. They can never prove anything, of course, but rumors have run rampant all through the press, both online and in hard copy formats. All it takes is the slightest show of weakness or vulnerability, any opening whatsoever, and the media will jump on it. One of the pages showcased a picture of Kanon leaving my apartment with a man who looked like me. The article's twist implied that she was engaging in illicit affairs right before a major competition, no less. An anonymous liaison identified me as a goon involved in an organized crime syndicate. Gosh darn it, I didn't even realize my picture had been taken. I violently threw the magazine into the rubbish bin and began to brainstorm a damage control plan. It seems that Gonzo hasn't responded to this. Last time, he barged into the editor's office and gave them a good thrashing, but this time he's just sitting on the sidelines. I see. Darn, that means he thinks this whole mess is unsalvageable. I had planned to utilize my connections with the publisher to pressure them into changing their story, but that would be useless. Every editor in Japan is conspiring against Kanon, trying to make her into the next big scoop. Every last one of them has turned their backs on her. It wouldn't be all that big of a stretch to say the whole country is rejecting Kanon. Instead of getting worked up over her popularity, she needs to buckle down and produce some results. But in Kanon's state, at that moment, there was a sound at the door. It was just a little past noon. Hey, aren't you supposed to be at your official practice? Even spectators were coming to see you today, weren't they?
怪我したから帰ってきた。
She sulked in the doorway. Injured? What happened?
ちょっと腰打ったの。痛いからもう今日は練習いい。
It doesn't seem to be that severe. Is it really that bad? She didn't reply.
瀬田さんにやられたんだよ。
I tilted my head in doubt.
一緒に練習しててさ、私が滑ってるのに近くでジャンプしててさ。
And collided with you?
ぶつかってきたの、絶対。
It's not particular for athletes to bump into each other during practice.
わざとやったくせにしれーっとしてさ、なんなの一体。
I'm utterly perplexed. Well, why would she do that?
だってあの子、今までずっと私にヘコヘコしてたもん。
Drama.
なんでかわかる？ジャンプじゃ私に勝てないからだよ。それが私の近くでジャンプの練習するなんておかしいじゃない。これ見よがしに、なんとか飛べるトリプルアクセル見せて。何今度は、ジャンプでも私に勝とうっていうの？
Kanon has a tantrum, throwing her duffel bag on the floor. I muster up my calmest voice in response. Kanon, go back to practice.
え？
The tournament is in 2 days. This time is critical for improving her program.
だから腰が痛いって言わなかった？
She raises her voice and shouts at me. Her eyes become full of hostility, and she flares her nostrils.
今さら何やったって無駄だよ。もうやるべきことは全部やった。今までずっとやるべきことしかしてこなかった。今さら何の準備が必要だっていうの？
Nothing. But do you really think you can win like that?
当たり前でしょ。
She raises her voice and points at me.
前回だって転倒した後普通にやってればまず優勝できたんだよ。 それくらい瀬田さんの得点は大したことなかったの。ちょっと運が良かっただけの女に、なんで私が負けるの？
Her reaction was too sensitive. I finally realized Kanon wasn't as confident as she let on. And because she lacks confidence, she's taking it out on me.
だいたいあの曲、この前負けたのはあの曲とコーチの作ったプログラムのせいだよ。
Only Japanese athletes will be participating in the Japan Championships. Thus, it's likely to become a one-on-one match between Seta and Kanon. Kanon never saw Seta as a threat, so it must have been quite a shock to her pride to be beaten by her. Kanon, you shouldn't fret over Seta. If you keep worrying about her, you won't win. You said so yourself, remember?
気にしてなんかないよ。
She lowered her head, but her obstinate attitude remained. Kanon, you're selfish as heck, but you've never been one to lie, and you've always kept your dignity when it comes to skating. You get what I'm saying, right? Now go back to practice. I glanced at the waist she had been whining about and pointed to the door.
だって。
She shakes her head, vexed.
今外に出たらテレビの人がいっぱいだよ。
What?
瀬田さんに怒鳴りつけてやったの。死んじゃえって。
I was dazed for a moment.
自分が悪いのにベソベソ泣いちゃってさ。
Go apologize right this instant. I stared Kanon down.
なんで？
She must have seen the anger in my eyes as she returned fire accordingly.
だってわざとぶつかってきたんだよ。怪我するところだったんだよ。
Even if she did, what you said was wrong. Well, not that I can say anything. Look, I'll go with you. I grabbed her hand, but she shook it off.
絶対行かない。
She must be confusing me with her submissive mother.
あの子泣きながら言うの。どうしたんですかカノンさん。憧れてたのにってへこへこと尻尾ばっかり振って。
I begrudgingly listened to Kanon as her voice began to drip with resentment.
絶対謝らないからね。
She stood there like a rock, not budging an inch. I hesitate before sighing a few times. What should I do? How should I loosen Kanon's obstinate conviction? Force her to apologize, embrace her, and show my affection. That wasn't very nice of her to say. I don't know, though. I don't know. We don't really know what Seta was thinking. Maybe she did do it on purpose. Only she would know that. Okay, I'm just gonna side with Kanon. Embrace her and show my affection. I loosened up my posture and called to her. Kanon, come here.
何？
Just come here. She cautiously walks over to me. You must be tired. I wrap my arms around her neck. Calm down a little.
落ち着いてるよ。
Good. Then let's go back to and apologize in a little bit. I said this casually, but it backfired.
それはやだよ。
Kanon started shouting with hostility again.
なんで兄さんの言うこと聞かなきゃいけないの？
What are you going off about now?
知ってるよ。兄さんだってパパの仕事手伝って悪いことたくさんしてるんでしょ？
I couldn't tell whether she was just bluffing or if she actually did know.
そうなんでしょ？絶対そうだよ。
I kept my cool and replied, And what if I do? It doesn't matter what kind of person I am. If Mother Teresa were here, you wouldn't listen to her. You won't listen to anyone. And anyway, I'm not the one we're talking about here. Let me fall to hell of my own volition. Kanon hung her head and clamped her mouth shut in fright. It's true that I'm in no position to admonish anyone. So I'll just have to change Kanon's mind through my usual means. Would you be willing to compromise? I deepened my voice, as I do when I'm engaging in business negotiations. You absolutely refuse to apologize to Seta.
だから、何度も言ってるじゃない。
Fine. At least go back to practice.
それは。
No buts. You're out of my house one way or the other. But if you don't show up at practice, you better find some other place to sleep tonight, because you'll be dead to me. I finally hit her where it hurts. She shut her mouth, and her lips started trembling. What, you got a problem with that? Then get the heck out of here and get back to the arena. I'm a cruel brute beyond salvation to address my sister in this manner.
そんな。兄さんは。兄さんだけは味方じゃ。
This isn't about picking sides, Kanon. I made a compromise. You don't have to apologize for saying bad things to Seta, but you do have to continue skating. Kanon droops her head at my conditions.
わかったよ。
She picks up her bag, still looking flustered. Is this really okay? I just convinced her to keep skating. After some time, after her emotional scars have healed, maybe she will apologize to Seta. Really though, the girl should be kneeling in atonement before hitting the ring. This is interesting. I actually got a choice during this route. I don't think Subiki's chapter had choices in it. The sun was about to set. I'm so very sorry about what happened earlier. I brought a few boxes of confections to Seta's practice rink in her team's offices by way of apology. When I introduced myself as Kanon's brother, everyone shot me dirty glares with a hint of disbelief, but this isn't the time to be worried about appearances. Yes, I'll make sure this doesn't happen again. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'll be taking my leave. I reconciled with them and left my contact information. When I got back to my apartment, someone suddenly called out to me.
すいません。浅井京介さんですよね。
I could guess what he was here for. Who's asking? It was a middle-aged man with a stubble on his chin. The guy claimed to be a journalist.
ちょっとお時間よろしいですかね。
Sorry. I excuse myself and try to enter the apartment, but the man latches onto my coat. I took the opportunity to scowl at him, but he's probably used to that by now. He didn't seem to be perturbed.
ほんのちょっとでいいんですよ。妹さんについてちょっとお話をお伺いしたいなと。
I wince at his pushiness, but he pushes on.
瀬田選手に死ねと叫んだそうですが。あなたから見てカノンさんはどんな妹さんなんです？
Whether I say something or not, he'll be writing bad things about her in tomorrow's news. My sister is a very kind girl. I borrowed Akimoto's words. He disregards my simple comment and shoots off more questions.
やっぱりあの性格は母親譲りだと思われますか？
If I feared nothing, or had the power to make things that I do fear disappear like Gonzo does, I would have flogged this man. Kanon loves her mother. She must be trying to cut Ikuko-san some slack. That's the only reason Kanon would tolerate running a free skate program she resents so thoroughly. She's doing everything in her power to fulfill her mother's expectations. That's why she's worked so hard all these years. I can't imagine any other reason she would relinquish her opportunity to spend Christmas Eve with me, the man she gave herself to. And to be honest, I can't blame her. If you were to ask me who comes second in my heart after my lover, I'd answer my mother without a second thought. But this man isn't looking for a fairy tale answer like that. It appears that he was dissatisfied with the responses given to him as he scurried off quickly. It may be a holiday, but things are as busy as ever. I've got to pick up Kanon in a bit. I suddenly received a call from an unlisted number. This is Azai. May I ask who's calling? The person on the other end of the line mumbled nervously before introducing herself.
私、瀬田真紀子と申します。突然お電話してすみません。
That perks me up. I'm so sorry about today's mishap. Is there something you'd like to discuss with me?
いえ、
She spoke awkwardly.
カノンさんのお兄さんですよね。
That's right. Like I said, I'm so sorry for all the trouble my sister is.
とんでもないです。あれは私がいけなかったんです。
She continued staring on her in a flustered voice.
いきなりお電話したのは、カノンさんとたまにお食事させてもらった時に、京介さんのお話が出ていましたので。
She talks about me?
はい、とっても楽しそうに大好きだって言ってました。
She talks about me? Her voice brightened up like a flower. Her manner of speech conveyed her emotion through the receiver.
それで、カノンさんにとって大切な人なんだろうと思いまして、私が気にしてないということをお伝えいただければと。
I see. I'll pass that on. Thanks for going out of your way to let me know.
カノンさんは私の憧れなんです。
Her voice livened up.
ですから、あさっての全国でも全力で競い合いたいなと。
In other words, she doesn't want Kanon's focus to derail.
カノンさん、何かストレスを溜めていらっしゃるようですが、大丈夫でしょうか？
Even with my cynical disposition, I heard no trace of malice or conceit in her voice. At last year's World Championships, Seta suffered through a failure so devastating that Japan's prestige in the realm of figure skating came crashing down, consequently reducing Japan's competitor quota from 3 to 1. The overwhelming criticism she faced then was probably no less than that which Kanon is facing now. Yet now she's grown into someone capable of caring for others, despite the severity of her own wounds. There was only one thing to say to my sister's compassionate rival. Kanon is a very strong person. I promise she won't disappoint you tomorrow. Did she realize that I was just making excuses? Seta chose not to press the point any further.
どうもありがとうございました。カノンさんによろしくお伝えください。
After that, we ended our conversation. Anxiety began to assail me once more. Kanon is taking Seta too lightly. Kanon's jumps are only one step ahead of Seta's. However, Seta has the composure that Kanon lacks. I watched her perform many times during the finals. Even if Kanon was in peak physical condition, Seta would still give her a run for her money. Unfortunately, there's only one ticket to Worlds this year. Will Kanon, who lacks direction in life, be able to take home the gold and make that next step? Who cares about the Olympics anyway? Who'd be satisfied with a piddly little gold medal? A devil had been nesting in Kanon's heart. It occasionally bore its sharp fangs at Seta, and it made Kyosuke wince more than once. It had been getting out of hand lately.
カノンちゃん、さっきの通し稽古素敵だったわよ。あれが本番だったら確実に金メダルね。
Ikiko's familiar smile flattered Kanon once again as she rested in the hallway. Who cares about the Olympics? This darn woman. Kanon wonders why she spent half her life in flashy costumes on the cold ice and glares at the individual before her. In Kanon's eyes, Ikiko is an abomination. No matter how many hostile gazes Kanon hurls upon her, she never breaks her smile. Kanon's eyes turn toward the woman, only to find her watching Kanon, her face plump like a rice cake. Ikiko didn't even seem to care that Kanon had stopped calling her mom.
あさってはいつも通りやってくれればいいのよ。そしたら念願のオリンピックは目前よ。
She was frolicking about in a way unbecoming for a woman her age. It was scary at times. Kanon suppressed her urge to ask, "Who are
念
you?"
願のオリンピック。
She meant to say that in her mind, but it accidentally slipped out.
そうお母さんの夢よ。
へえ、
私が取れなかった金メダルカノンちゃんが掴むのよ。
私が
世界の一番になるの素敵なことでしょ。
うん。
Kanon nodded. If she didn't at least respond in some way, Ikuko would just go on and on. However, she must have been in a strange mood today, as Kanon decided to pursue the
なんで
conversation
金メダル
altogether.
欲しいの？
一番の名誉だからよ。
Ikuko didn't hesitate in the slightest when giving her her answer.
名誉ってそんなにすごい？
いくらお金を積んでも手に入らないものよ。
私もその名誉のために頑張るべきなの？
もちろんよ。
でもそれは幸せなの？
アスリートにとってそれ以上の幸せなんてないわ。
でもそれはコーチにとっての幸せじゃないの？
私の幸せはカノンちゃんの幸せでしょ。
She said so with her eyes wide open, her voice imbued with conviction. Kanon felt disgusted with her mother. She was acting like she understood Kanon. Kanon has never heard a single positive opinion about her mother. Everyone scorns her and scoffs at her. They call her inflexible, overly self-conscious, and greedy, and say her arrogance knows no bounds. Ikuko brags that she does all that for the purpose of taking on the role of an antagonist, all for the sake of acting as a filter to draw negative attention away from Kanon. Kanon feigned innocence and asked the person in question.
じゃあ、もし私が金メダル取れなかったらどうする？
取れるわよ。
もしもの話だよ。
A slight glimmer of bewilderment shone in the abomination's eyes. Like someone who had just been told the earth was round for the very first time, her world began to come apart at the seams, starting with the facial expression she had used as a mask for so long.
金メダルを取れなかったら
She said with a shocked expression, as though staring at a
わからない
ghost.
わ。
With those short words, she revealed a glimpse of her true feelings. Kanon confidently answered her own question.
死ぬでしょ、お母さん。
Ikuko nodded with an expression that looked as though she had found nirvana.
間違いないわ。
She muttered, not even realizing that she had been called Mom for the first time in so many years. That hoarse voice gave Kanon the feeling that her mother had already put one foot into her grave, and a deep anxiety overcame her. I entered the skating rink to pick up Kanon. I thought they might be quarreling again, but Kanon stood alone in the hallway, still dressed in her costume. What happened, Kanon?
ああ、兄さん。
Let's go.
うん。
She looked away and nodded. Did something happen again?
ううん。何も。
Her eyes were dazed and unfocused.
ちょっとだけ嫌なこと忘れてすっきりしたいなって思ってるだけ。
And that's why you were so out of it? Still wearing her costume, she seemed to be struck with anxiety.
ねえ兄さん。お昼みたいにちょっとだけ抱きしめて。
I had no reason to refuse. We embraced shortly before closing time in an empty hallway.
落ち着くよ。このまま消えちゃいたいくらい。
It's rare for you to be so sentimental.
だってもうわけわかんないんだもん。
Her voice fawned.
あったかいね。兄さんの胸。
If my body suits you, I'll lend it to you anytime.
本当？
Sure.
じゃあ
She hesitated for a second.
今して。
Huh?
いや、
That's not what I meant. And she knows that's not what I meant. Nevertheless, Kanon's resentment runs deep enough to ask me to do that.
更衣室
Love it.
誰も来ないよ。
Love her.
この時間なら。
She blushes absent-mindedly.
兄さん、ダメ。
Okay. I focused my mind, which had been swept up in the moment. If I love her now, it'll be like running away. Maybe she'll feel better. I gotta do it for her. Maybe she'll feel better. Alright.
いいの。
She looked up at me with a groggy expression, as though caught in a dream. If I let that dream surface into reality, perhaps her pent-up stress will dissipate. I respond to her feelings by drawing closer to her lips. All that's left is to surrender my body to this pleasantness. Very complicated feelings right now. After that, where did I go wrong? Kanon naturally lost to Seta in the Japan Championships and missed her chance to make it big in the world of figure skating. Kanon's performance was pitiful. The criticism got even worse, and she was laughed at behind her back on a daily basis. No one understood Kanon's anguish. How was I, being who I am, supposed to save Kanon?
ただいま。
Oh. Kanon came home and reported to me in a mature voice.
記者会見終わった。
I bet you're glad it's over with.
もう悩まなくていいのかな。
I nod ambiguously.
これから毎日兄さんと遊べるね。お菓子もたくさん食べられるしね。ようやく普通の生活に戻れるね。
She sounded like she was trying to convince herself.
のんちゃん何すればいいかな。将来何になればいいかな。
All Kanon knows is skating.
ねえ兄さん、暖かい国に住みたいです。ケニアとかいいです。
Right under the equator? A dry laugh leaked from my lips. It was a laugh of self-derision. I couldn't be of any help to my sister. Sure, you make the call. I'll take you anywhere. The least I can do is watch over Kanon as she leads her new life. What about Ikuko-san?
うん、死んじゃった。
Did she really hang herself?
みたい。
She spoke casually, almost as if she were merely discussing the weather.
私だけが頼りだったんだね。おかしな人だったけど、あの人なりに私を愛してたんだろうね。
Her head trembled in pain and regret, and she started crying. Kanon was a girl filled to the brim with sadness, loss, and despair.
ありがとうって。
She clenched her fists. It's
言い
very
たか
sad,
った。
though.
言いたかったよ。
I silently watched her sob.
誰も信じてくれないだろうけど、私、お母さんが、お母さんのこと、
The rest of her words were lost in her weeping. The kind young woman wept alone. Like a deserted child, she always endlessly suffered alone. Bad end. Oh, I got the bad end. No way. I actually got the bad end. Oh. That's crazy. So you actually get choices in this one. That's That's interesting. What do I do now? Oh, I'm back at this choice now. I'm just gonna pick all. It'll be like running away. See what that does. Sorry, Kanon. I try to be as gentle as possible and softly let go of Kanon. Her lingering, reluctant voice hurt my heart. Let's go, okay? Her previously warm eyes became cold in an instant. That rejection must have been rough on her.
どうかしてた、私。
Don't worry about it. Let's save it for when the tournament is over and done with. She heads to the dressing room with a blank expression. I'm glad I restrained myself. If I did it now, her heart may have shattered completely. After she finished changing, we returned to my room, talked a little, and I put Kanon to sleep. Christmas Eve rolled around. Kanon would be going straight from evening practice to a nursing home in the Central District. I realize it's only going to take a few hours, but should she really be doing publicity work the day before her big competition? Could this have possibly been arranged behind Coach Hilton's back? I can imagine Ikuko-san putting this together on her own. My curiosity got the best of me, so I asked Hilton. The man didn't seem too concerned about the money or politics in figure skating. He behaved like a genuine coach when I spoke with him. He told me he had allowed the gig on the conditions that it didn't get in the way of Kanon's holiday and that she didn't mind doing it. So, basically, I was right. Ikuko coaxed him into it. I can't blame him. Communicating with that hopelessly narrow-minded mother is difficult even for me.
じゃあ、行ってくるね。
That violent attitude from yesterday had disappeared. In its place, gloomy eyes looked up at me. I'll come pick you up later tonight. I had looked up the address of the nursing home. We can do something to celebrate afterwards.
気使わなくていいよ。
She solemnly lifts her eyebrows. Kanon was worried that the cajolery she hates so much was mixed into my words somehow. Where?
さ、行こうかな。練習中、瀬田さんに気をつけなきゃ。
I let slip what I hesitated to say. Seta called yesterday.
はあ？
She said she wasn't angry or anything, and that it was her fault.
ちょっと何それ。
Yet again, she lets out her anger.
だいたいなんで兄さんに電話してくるのよ。私に謝るべきでしょうが。
She was probably trying to give you some time to cool down. She figured I'd tell you when the time was right. But I guess I jumped the gun a little. I mean, did you forgive her the first time she apologized directly to you? No, you just lashed out at her.
だからって。
So Seta is worried about you.
どうだか。
She heaves a sigh of disdain bearing her mother's intolerance. She's nothing to sneeze at, you know.
はいはい。明日思い知らせてあげるよ。
Kanon runs out the door.
ついてきてくれるの？
I just thought I'd watch you practice. If you don't mind, of course.
夜も私と施設まで来てくれるの？
I've got plans for tonight.
なんで？私と過ごすはずだったんだよね。
That got canceled, so I'll be with Papa. I can't think of any two words that seem to fit together less than Christmas and Gonzo, but believe it or not, the Yakuza really gets into holiday festivities. I'll pick you up, though.
うん。
She entered the arena with an air of dissatisfaction. I sit in the empty stands, staring down onto the ice. The athletes change into their costumes and do the practice routine their respective coaches tell them to. I watch Kanon. She's standing near the wall, being scolded by Hilton. He's saying something about her not being into the practice. Indeed, her skating tonight seems weak and lifeless. What a truly mental sport.
あら、京介くん珍しいわね。
I'm startled by a voice behind me as it abruptly calls my name. And how are you today, Ikuko-san? Ikuko-san, who should be an outsider, stood there as if it were a matter of course.
カノンはどう？
She's not looking too good.
そうね。何が原因なのかしら。
My chest tightens in disgust.
やっぱり京介くんのお家に寝泊まりするようになったからじゃない？ほら、枕が違うと眠れないってあるでしょ？
Perhaps. Who knows? My gaze returns to Kanon. Ikuko-san doesn't seem to heed my cold attitude. What are you doing here, Ikuko-san?
何を？もちろんカノンの演技を見ているのよ。
Every day?
毎日よ。本当は私が教えてあげたいくらいなんですけどね。
Kanon is truly everything to this person.
あら大変。そろそろ休憩時間ね。
Where are you going?
決まってるじゃない。温かい飲み物差し入れてあげるのよ。
That clingy voice sent a chill up my spine. You do that every day?
どうしたの？当たり前じゃない。
Acting so servile each and every day. How terrifying. If the object of her love was a member of the opposite sex, then she would have become a terrible stalker indeed.
かわいそうなカノンちゃん。私だったらあんなに叱ったりしないわ。
Her words seemed to imply that she was the only person capable of comforting Kanon.
じゃあね、京介くん。
She walks away like a girl skipping through a flower garden. I, on the other hand, am stunned speechless. Why didn't I realize this sooner? How did I not notice Kanon's dreadful mother always following her around like a shadow? The woman's an abomination. She undoubtedly loves Kanon. And she loves herself just as much. Well done, Kanon. It's 4 o'clock, and she just put the finishing touches on her program for tomorrow. Before I can call out to Kanon, Ikuko runs up to her.
今日も良かったわよ。スパイラルなんて氷の削りくずが見えないくらい軽やかだったわ。
そう？
ええ、瀬田さんなんて目じゃないわ。
声大きいよ。
だって本当なんですもん。
All this time, the woman's just been complimenting her to death.
あ、上着リンクに忘れた。
取ってくるわ。ここで待ってて。
She jogs off.
兄さん、まだいたんだ。
That's a lovely greeting.
どう思った？
I'm not really sure. I still can't quite tell the difference between the different kinds of jumps in real time yet. Kanon nodded indifferently.
お客さんの大半はわかんないよ。わかってないくせにあれこれ言うの。
That's just how it goes.
そうだね。別に気にしてないからいいよ。
She speaks negligently and sighs uninterestedly.
コーチ遅いな。
She looks up at the clock with narrowed eyes.
いつもああなんだよね。
It's all for your sake, though, right?
何から何までしてくれるよ。
Isn't that a good thing?
助かりすぎて。のんちゃんはわがままに育ちましたとさ。
Apparently, Kanon came to my recent realization a long time ago. While trying to think of what to say to ease Kanon's steeled heart, I find our conversation wandering to my own mother. My mother did everything for me, too.
兄さんのお母さん？
I've talked to you about her before, haven't I?
うん。病気してるって。
Right. Anyway, I've been thinking about going to live with her again.
ふーん。
Back when I lived up north, she stayed up all night once to sew me a pair of gloves. When I talk about our time together out loud, it sounds like I'm spouting country lyrics or something. We smiled as we shared some noodles and broth. Pretty funny, isn't it?
別に。
No, it totally is. When I came down with a fever once, she rode a bicycle down snowy roads to find doctors and bring them back to our place.
へえ。
Has Ikuko-san ever done anything like that?
ないでもない。
She lowers her gaze and tilts her head as if trying to recall something. And as if changing her mind, looks back at me.
だったら何なの？
Heck if I know.
何それ？
The only thing I can boast about is my mother, so I did. I didn't mean anything by it. She always projected such a radiant personality, so having one parent never made me feel like something was missing. She risked herself to protect me from that monster of a man. My mother is the most amazing person in this world to me.
でも、
She shook her head.
でも、私のお母さんは、
I interrupted her next words. Your mother is your mother. It's no use comparing yourself to me or placing the blame with me. Your mother is Ikuko-san. Quite the cheesy line, if I say so myself. Sorry, I've got an Oedipus what? complex. I mean, I'm always bringing up my mom when talking to girls on group dates, and it tends to freak them out a little. Kanon unintentionally winks or I smile.
今日の兄さん、変だよ。
Yeah, I am.
自分のことなんて、ほとんど話さないのに。
To be honest, I just don't know how to handle you.
うん。知ってる。
Is it that obvious? Kanon gave an unsure smile.
形だけでも、兄妹だもん。
An apologetic light dwelt in her eyes. But she never once said she was sorry.
カノンちゃん、お待たせ。
うん。
Kanon carelessly grabs the jacket that Ikuko-san hands her. I see that a lot. Do you plan on wearing it for the free skate the day after tomorrow? After I say that, Kanon's mother's face lights up.
私が選んであげたのよね、カノンちゃん。だからお気に入りなのよね。
Kanon jerks her chin and addresses me.
そういうこと。
I, her brother in name only, suddenly realize that she's only trying to feign insolence. As she leaves, she turns back.
もう合コン行っちゃやだよ。
She was neither angry nor laughing. She came off more like a pouting child. It's quite dark outside now. I'm exhausted from dealing with that villainous bunch. I think every last one of them asked me if I planned to join the Yakuza. There were more important things on my mind. I have to go meet up with Kanon. The place is in the central district, right somewhere near the hospital where we caught Saijo. I had completely forgotten about Mao's existence. I haven't heard anything from Usami either. Lovely child, huh? Let's just put all that in the past. Kanon is waiting for me. Have I gotten lost? This is bad. It's way past 9 o'clock, the time I said I'd meet her. I don't want to make Kanon worry about such little things. The umpteenth time I turned a corner of one of these tangled residential streets. Huh? I spotted a crowd in the darkness. Several elderly people were crowded around someone. Is that Kanon? Kanon doesn't seem to have noticed me.
今日はどうもありがとうね。いいクリスマスになりました。
はい。
Kanon nodded with discontent.
忙しいのに本当にありがとう。ああ、もったいないや、もったいないや。
It's cute though. Yeah, I can certainly see how this would be an unprecedented event for them. It's not every day that a famous figure skater shows up at some downtown nursing home.
明日は試合なんでしょ？こんなジジババのために遅くまでごめんね。
いえ。
She shakes her head, but doesn't make eye contact with anyone. For some reason, I hesitate to call out to her. Kanon has an expression like she doesn't know what to do, and she won't take her leave. Even though her work is well finished. What change of heart did Kanon have? The same Kanon who was so apathetic toward her fans in
わしに
India.
もカノンちゃんと同じくらいの孫がいての。
The people here speak so intimately with her, their voices filled with emotion.
もう何年も会いに来てくれんが、カノンちゃんを見てると元気が出てきたわ。
そうですか。
ほんと、いいクリスマスプレゼントをありがとうございました。
The woman claps her hands together and bows. Kanon begins to mutter.
寂しいですか。
The elderly people around her can respond with nothing but saddened looks and wry smiles.
だって皆さん自分が育てた子供たちと何か事情があって一緒に暮らしてもらえないんでしょ？
Kanon chose her words as best she could. Stringing those thought-out words together, she continued.
それは寂しくて腹立たしいことじゃないですか？
Still, her audience maintains their polite smiles.
ああ、寂しいとも。
A man speaks up with something akin to pride.
じゃが、バカ息子にお金を出してもらってるから、偉そうな口は聞けんわ。
Kanon stares into empty space and stays silent.
とても寂しいけれど、そういうことで人を恨むには人生は長すぎるの。
Some of the people present had no relatives at all. As if comforting each other, they all talk about the conclusions they've come to over the course of their long lives.
感謝してるんですね。なんだかんだで。
When she says that, they smile at her in embarrassment.
カノンちゃん、そろそろ帰るわよ。
Yukiko-san hollers from a distance. Kanon nods reluctantly.
それではメリークリスマスでした。
The elderly people go their separate ways in low spirits.
カノンちゃん、お母さんの言った通りでしょ？
何が？
来てよかったと思わない？池部先生も大変満足してくれたわ。
Miss Ikebe was Ikiko's old coach and the one who arranged this job for Kanon.
お母さんも鼻が高いわ。
Without waiting for her daughter's response, Ikiko-san took the liberty to feel satisfied. Kanon,
あ、兄さん。
I've come to pick you up. Let's go.
じゃあ明日ね。うるさい連中に目に物見せてあげましょう。
She left, wearing her unchanging smile of flattery. A solid day's work, eh, Kanon?
疲れてないよ。
I walk home with the discontented Kanon. Alright, okay, let's do it again.
どうしたの？滑ってるよ。
She smiles wryly. I asked her about the gig while pouring some coffee. How was it? You showed the people at the nursing home your ballet, right?
もういろいろ忘れてた。
Still, they seem delighted.
そうだね。 あんなので満足してくれるなんて、よっぽど。
She suddenly bites her tongue and changes her mind. As long as they're happy, it doesn't matter.
勝ち負けがないならね。
I laugh abruptly.
瀬田さんみたいな競争相手がいないなら、それでもいいんじゃない？
I wonder. I sigh as I hand the coffee cup to her.
コーチ、さ、
Yeah?
私がオリンピックで金メダル取れなかったら、死んじゃうって。
Die? I could tell Kanon wasn't joking. And it's not out of Yukiko-san's character either. She relies far too much on her daughter. I wouldn't be surprised if she hung herself. I just think, oh, so she did it after all. And?
いや、
She rubs her legs together as if enduring the cold.
ただ、なんだろう。そっかって思った。
It seems like Kanon has been building up emotions which she can't convey through words. It won't be a laughing matter if she does die. I smile lightly while saying so.
そうだね。
Kanon smiles along with me. Anyway, go to sleep while it's still early.
うん。明日はうるさい連中に目に物見せてやらないとね。
She says so jokingly and heads for the changing room. A while later, Kanon is asleep on the bed. She peeks out from under the covers and whimpers a little.
本当は、明日も負けるかもって思うんだ。
I could sense the sincerity in that sobbing, wounded girl's voice. You go out there and do your best, girl. It's all that matters. Kanon's fears materialized into reality. It's the first day of the Japan Championships ladies events. Kanon's short program was scheduled directly following Seta's. Seta's performance was tremendous. The more applause she received, the higher her score would be, and the arena's furor was deafening. She received the highest score in the Japan Championships history and swept the audience into a whirlpool of excitement. She didn't rely solely on her trademark step sequences. She attempted the difficult jumps that Kanon specialized in and pulled them off magnificently. At the end of her performance, I involuntarily stood up and clapped with raging emotion. How could Kanon feel as she stepped into the rink, watching this new Seta and to kiss and cry? The applause that thundered in their arena was no longer directed at Kanon. Everyone has taken up the bad image forced upon her by the press. There were no boos or scoffs, of course, but the difference from last time was obvious. They chose instead to ridicule her with half-hearted applause, crossed legs, and a symphony of coughs and cleared throats. Everyone looked down upon her with discriminatory gazes, showing their distaste in a manner befitting the Japanese. Had she caught on to the tainted atmosphere, Kanon's performance lacked spirit. At least, that's how I saw it, and I'm sure the spectators and judges would agree.
ダメだな。
The man in the seat next to me didn't even wait until Kanon had finished to mutter his opinion. Though I didn't like it, I had to agree. It's true that she's lacking in vigor. What happened to her bullet-like speed? Her once magnificent jumps now looked as though they were just barely avoiding being marked as under-rotated. And she calls that edge work? Her legs seemed to be moving up a storm, but to me, it looked like she was just frantically shuffling them about. Maybe she ran out of stamina. During her final jump, a pained expression was plastered on the arena's jumbotron. When the song finished, a few scattered claps decorated the silence of the arena, but not a single person rose. There were no penalties to speak of, but the performance bore none of Kanon's unique charm, the charm that would usually shake one to his or her core. Her program was designed as innately high-scoring, so she managed to get second place, but there was more than a 15-point difference between her and the leader, Seta. As it stands, even a layman would call Worlds a long shot for Kanon. Participation at Worlds may be formally decided by the results of the Japan Championships, but they also take into account the scores of the Grand Prix figure skating finals. As the loser of the finals, Kanon would need a combined score this time around that beats Seta's by a hefty amount. It's highly unlikely that Kanon will be able to compensate for both the finals and today by trouncing Seta during tomorrow's free skate. In fact, she'll have her hands full just beating Seta at all. Just looking at Seta's technical score was enough to make my stomach turn. The technical score basically represents how well one executed difficult step sequences, jumps, and other elements. Up until now, everyone had predicted that Kanon would hold a monstrous lead with respect to technical marks. But in reality, the difference wasn't so overwhelming. Had Seta sincerely displayed some phenomenal growth, or had the judges handed down a rather lenient judgment, it was probably a combination of the two. At any rate, it was plenty enough to crush Kanon's pride and identity. And above all,
特に話すことはないです。
Kanon's face was displayed on the huge screen. Her cold expression didn't even have a trace of fighting spirit. Kanon was popular both on and off the ice in a bad way. An assembly of paparazzi and reporters asked her malevolent questions, hoping that she would slip up and say something regretful.
今回やる気は出したんですか？
瀬田選手の演技はどうでしたか？
カノンさん、こっち向いてくださいよ。子供じゃないんだから。
They probably figured that if Kanon wouldn't entertain their readers with her performance, then perhaps they could pull something out of her to give them a few kicks. The crowd and dozens of blinding flashes blocked Kanon's way. Her eyes were glued to the ground, and her gait betrayed that she was enduring pain and stress. I edged closer to Kanon and tugged her frail hand. They redirected their cameras toward me, but I had no time for them.
待って、コーチが来るから。
She whispered into my ear. Ikuko-san looked at the camera shamelessly and apologetically answered their trivial questions. Let's go.
待って。
Let's just leave her.
ダメ。
Why not?
ご飯食べに行こうって言われた。
I followed Kanon, feeling irritated. Ikuko-san was in high spirits during the meal. What happened to the ladylike etiquette she upheld before the media? She revealed her true colors and started ragging on Seta and the judges.
ほんと、カノンちゃんは何も悪くないのよ。
うん。
Kanon nodded mechanically as if Ikuko's words were going in one ear and out the other.
みんな最低よね。気にしちゃダメよ。カノンちゃんの良さは私だけはちゃんと分かってるからね。
うん。
まだ明日があるんだから落ち込まないでね。優勝さえすればあとはお母さんに任せなさい。必ず世界に行けるようにしてあげるから。
うん。
My stomach churns from the nausea. Ikuko maintains this big smile, like it's carved into her face, and clings onto her daughter. With a face as emotionless as a porcelain doll, Kanon accompanied her mother. As I began to feel a bit dizzy, a bizarre circumstance presented itself. The two of them went on ahead out of the alleyway and headed toward the sidewalk on the other side of the street. The traffic light turned green. They began to cross the empty intersection. On the right-hand side, I saw a dark shadow approach. Ikuko-san faced it. Watch out! Was I the one who shouted that? Or was it Ikuko-san who shouted it? The one who got run over? The driver of the sports car was conversing with a woman in the passenger seat and ran through the red light. The grinding sound of the brakes snapped me out of my daze. The tire screech wasn't very loud, so the car must have been going really slowly. I managed to retain my composure despite the shock of the incident. The driver jumped out of the car, shouting. What the heck were you doing, you idiot? This isn't my fault. But the traffic signal clearly conveyed the blame. People gathered around the intersection. Beside Ikuko-san, who was laying on the ground face up, Kanon stood perfectly still. That girl stood like a statue, wearing the face she does when ignoring her mother's cajolery. Someone got hit, and then she nodded. Oh, what? Her ankle throbbed in
全
pain.
然大丈夫よ。
Her mother's patronizing laughter echoed in the dark room. Coach had been hit by a car. She didn't remember much after that. The police came, and she remembered Kyosuke running around in a hurry or something.
カノンちゃん、怪我はない？
ない。
そうよね。私が守ってあげたのよね。とっさのことだったから覚えてないでしょうけど。
Oh man. However, Kanon remembered the details of the accident clearly. Ikuko hadn't protected her. Kanon saw the sluggish car coming. She yelled, "Watch out!" However, Ikuko faced the car in a sort of suicidal standoff. She pushed Kanon away, and the next moment, she was lying on the ground. It looked more like intentionally slipping and tumbling over in an exaggerated fashion to Kanon. In fact, the car never even touched her. Her head was just barely scratched. She would stay in the hospital overnight just to be sure all was well. That was it. Actually, when Ikuko pushed Kanon out of the way, she might have sprained Kanon's ankle. That was a far more serious concern.
ちゃんとうるさいマスコミには伝えておくからね、カノンちゃん。
The mother was chivalrously toppled while protecting her daughter. It was a fabricated fairy tale, but her mind had already decided to paint that fabricated fairy tale as reality. What a person. Kanon had no idea such an insignificant, petty human could possibly exist. Remembering that this woman was her own mother
こ
froze
れで
Kanon's
明
blood.
日のジャッジも甘くなるといいんだけれどね。
Ikuko's chin jerks with a faint grin. All Kanon could do was smile awkwardly. I wish she would just die, she plainly thought. Those lingering sentiments finally crystallized, and Kanon
コーチ
said,
は私のこと大好きなんだよね。
どうしたの？
ずっと好きなんだよね。
もちろんよ。
そっか。じゃあ、
Kanon focuses on the faint echoes of the hospital's corridors. There's nothing within earshot. No one else is in the hospital room. The white bed, the white Ikuko, wearing it distinct against the black darkness of the room. Sweat runs down her temple, trickling down her cheeks and across her neck. It's winter, but it's terribly hot. Kanon's fingers tighten into a fist, and her beating heart hammers against her ribcage. She tries to move, but her feet stick to the floor like they're glued in place. Now, do it. There's no other way. Mother and daughter. The irrefutable bonds of blood. As long as her mother exists, this nightmare will continue. She must break these bonds. Ikuko let her guard down. She could never have imagined her daughter's bare fangs might be turned against her. Kanon stands still, looking down upon her mother. This is the last time she'll see her mother's smiling face. Long ago, she had believed that this face, one ruled by flattery and pettiness, was a gentle one. She reflects on her past subconsciously. Kanon had looked up at this face quite a bit as a child.
立派になったわね、カノンちゃんも。
Kanon flushes all thoughts of hesitation from her mind. She won't let herself be fooled again. Ikuko loves herself. She's just using her daughter to fulfill the dreams she couldn't fulfill herself. Up until now, she's obeyed her mother's instructions. Even though she knew her mother had no talent, she allowed her to be her coach for a long period of time. Kanon didn't reject or revise her mother's free skate program either. She wore whatever Ikuko asked her to wear. She went along with her mother, showing off to the press even though she felt it was disgraceful. Kanon bites her lip. Her Christmas Eve plans were the last straw. She sacrificed her promise to her brother, the man she loves, for the sake of her mother's
こ
image.
れ以上何をすがろうっていうの？あなたは。
すがる？
私にのしかかろうとしないで。
変なカノンちゃん。
At that moment, Kanon's arm shot out. Like an arrow, it fired at Ikuko's neck. Her vision, her arm, her breath, her knees, her entire body was trembling furiously.
どうして？
No, in reality, Kanon hadn't budged 1 inch.
どうして？
She suppresses a moan as she stands there
あ
shivering.
なたは最低の母親なのに。 最低なのにどうして
A mother is still a mother, no matter what.
どれだけ利用されてもいいとか思っちゃうのかな。
カノンちゃん？
黙れ。
She explodes in
あな
anger.
たはいつもそう。ずっとそう。ずっと気づかない完璧な人間で、ずっと自分の正しい世界に住んで、その中で死んでいくだけ。
Yukiko had a frightened expression, as if thinking, has my
で
child
も
gone
いいよ。
mad?
もう分かったよ。分かっちゃったんだよ。
Kanon looks back on her short life. She had been forced to skate as though it were a natural thing. But even if she was pressured by her mother, the many crowd's applauses were real. Those people's smiles were real.
ありがとうって言わなきゃいけないんだって。苦しいけど、悔しいけど、おかしいなって思いながらでも言わなきゃいけないんだって。
Kanon glared at her mother in anger and disgrace, but her words continued to flow out endlessly.
たとえあなたが自分のために私を利用していたのだとしても、そこにいろんな感謝や感動があったんだから。
カノンちゃん、落ち着いて。
Kanon shook her head. Any intervention would be futile. I'm talking to myself right now.
私はお金になるんでしょ。いいよ、どんどん稼いで。スケートはお金かかるもんね。あなたが何百万っていうお金を出してくれなかったら、今頃浅井カノンなんて誰も知らなかっただろうね。
そんなつもりは。
いいんだよ。本当に好きにして。あなたは私に優しくて、誰よりも親切だった。もうそれだけでいいよ。
Kanon mutters as she cries herself out.
もういいよ、お母さん。もう憎むのは終わりにする。
カノンちゃん、
Yukiko says
まさか
dubiously.
スケートが嫌になったの？
Kanon smiles weakly and shakes
大
her
好き
head.
だよ。
そう。
一番になるよ。
Her foolish mother returned once more to her genuine expression. Kanon let out an involuntary laugh.
だってお母さんだもんね。しょうがないよね。
At that moment, Yukiko swallowed her breath in surprise. In Kanon's eyes, the plaster abomination surrounding her
お
mother
母さん
began
は
crack.
カノンちゃんを傷つけていたの？ね
No one answered her mother.
え、そうなの？
But the mother started quivering as well.
カノンちゃん？
She looked into her daughter's face with bated breath. When she realized that contained within was pity toward herself, and the feeling that the only thing left was to just give up, her lips tightened and she blinked
かわ
a
い
few
そう
times.
なお母さん。誰もあなたのことなんて好きじゃない。だったら私だけが一番になってあげる。世界でただ一人、私だけは味方になってあげるよ。
I'm honored to accept the privileged title of Mom's number one.
いいんだよ、お母さん。もういいんだよ。
Kanon smiled. If she doesn't smile, nothing will change.
カノンちゃん、私。
After speaking with gasping breaths, her eyes slowly filled with despair. And then the night wore on. The contest Kanon's mother wagered her honor and even life on slowly drew near. The 26th of December. The match that would decide Kanon's future as an athlete was about to begin. She didn't come home until early in the morning.
ただいま兄さん。
When she did, she bore a somewhat grand expression.
昨日は迷惑かけたね。
I don't know what happened, but she seemed to be lively enough. Don't worry about it. I'm used to dealing with cops. You know me, always up to no good.
お母さんももう大丈夫だよ。大した怪我じゃなくて本当に良かったよ。お母さん、私をかばってくれたんだよね。
I almost shouted. Are you kidding? According to the police report, there was no evidence that Ikuko-san ever came into contact with the sports car. I still have no idea how she could have hit her head.
だって私を突き飛ばしてくれたもん。かばってくれたんだよ、お母さんなりに。
I see. I suppose this is one of those rare points in life where the ends justify the means. Who am I to complain if it got Kanon to start calling Ikuko-san mom?
兄さんにもいろいろ迷惑かけたね。それを言いに帰ってきたの。
Are you alright, Kanon? She was strangely meek.
兄さんがいなかったらのんちゃん終わってたと思う。
No, I didn't do anything.
いつもわがまま聞いてくれた。辛い時に抱きしめてくれた。私に代わって瀬田さんに謝ってくれた。お母さんの話もしてくれた。
So?
お詫びに今日は最高の演技を見せるね。
In return? Did Kanon say such a thing? Well, I won't ask why. Just make sure to keep your word, okay?
当たり前だよ。
It's been too long since I last saw Kanon's radiant smile. She must have found some sort of peace. A crowd of reporters who've heard about yesterday's incident run to meet the car as it pulls up to the curb and lets Kanon out.
カノンさん、お母様が大変な目に遭われたそうですが。
He speaks without even feigned concern as microphones and cameras are thrust at Kanon.
大事ありません。
Kanon replies boldly. She stares down the cameras without hesitation.
午後には退院して私の演技を見に来てくれます。私は母のため今までで一番芸術的な演技を皆さんの前でお見せします。どうぞよろしくお願いいたします。
The reporters all stood dumbfounded, leaving an empty pause clearly unfit for live television. Kanon lifted her chin high and disappeared through the staff entrance. The long-awaited ladies' free skate begins at 6:30. When I arrived at the arena at 1 o'clock, the ice dancing and pair skating matches were already underway.
おや、浅井さんじゃないですか。
ああ、京介。
I suddenly run into Iichi Nusami. Nusami, I thought I had finally gotten rid of you. How did you manage to get a ticket?
全国大会はファイナルほど混雑しないみたいでしたね。徹夜で並んで当日券ゲットしました。
As disgusting as ever, I see.
私の仲間その2の最後の戦いとなれば応援せねばならんでしょ。
This won't be your final battle, I can promise you that.
すみません。まだ始まってもいませんでしたね。
Sounds like something from a movie trailer, but alright. If you're gonna say final, at least save it for the Olympics. Usami nodded.
椿も6時には来るって。私のデザインしたクソ可愛い垂れ幕持ってきますよ。昨日みんなで作ったんだよ。
Whoa, you guys are shamelessly cheesy.
いえいえ、浅井さんも昨日一瞬だけテレビに映ってましたよ。手を引いてマスコミからカノンを守る姿とかかなり熱かったっす。
Oh, shut up. Just go sit down, will you? I waved them away with my hand.
おめえがホテルの予約キャンセルしたおかげで親父にクソ怒られたわ。
Ichi never forgets to complain. Sometimes he forgets to say bye, but he never forgets to complain. Talk about a bunch of numbskulls. Still, Kanon would be happy. I wish we could let her know that her friends have come to watch her. I had a light meal before the ladies' singles started. In the packed corridor of the arena, I see a man horribly out of place among this everyday scenery. Well, I'll be. Did you have a sudden change of heart, father? Gonzo appears from out of the crowd of Yakuza around him.
俺の血の一部がどういった死に様を見せるのか気になってな。
Meet her end?
今日負ければあれは終わりだ。
Oh, yes, of course.
もう何の富も生み出さぬガラクタになり下がる。
Naturally. All the major sponsors cut their contracts with Kanon. With Kanon's current image, she'll be of no further use to the Soniyama Group financially. She'll lose her backing in her career. I gaze into Gonzo's gold eyes. Your prediction for today's outcome isn't very fatherly. A strange light runs through those brutal eyes. I pay no heed to it and spit out with a hint of challenge. My girl is your daughter, you know. There's no way she can lose. He laughs deeply as he stares me down in delight.
勝てるのか。
Yep.
すでに1位の三能物産の犬と15点もの大差をつけられているが、
That won't stop, Kanon.
構成点では負け、技術点すらほぼ互角だが。
Well, Seta has traditionally dominated the performance, execution, and interpretation components. And I suppose it's true that her jumps have been catching up with Kanon's recently.
今日は違うというのだな。
She still has a few tricks up her sleeve.
自力でも人気でも劣るカノンが勝てると。
The more people say she can't do it, the more important it is for me to have faith in her. Gonzo nods with a condescending smile plastered on his lips.
京介、お前も俺にへつらうだけの家畜かと思っていたが、初めて意見が分かれたな。
The monster turns his back to me. The arena was packed with hustle and bustle. I have half a mind to worry that the commotion will melt the ring size. Everyone's here to see the new idol, Seta Makiko. I look around and see hundreds of signs cheering for Seta. I sit down and the group practice before the competition starts. There is still no sign of Kanon, who is scheduled to go last. I suddenly feel a presence behind my head.
ここいいですか？
A voice I'd never heard called out to me. Oh, Ikuko-san? She was almost like a ghost. Tall eyes, shaky legs. What's wrong? Shouldn't you be over in a staff seating? She shakes her head.
私はコーチでも何でもありませんから。
I look at her ticket. Seating for relatives, right next to mine. Are you feeling alright?
ええ、
She murmurs as she hobbles over to her seat. She's a terribly eerie sight. It would be an understatement to say that she merely looks possessed. With a face like a corpse, she stares into empty space.
ねえ、知ってた？カノンちゃん泣いていたの。心で泣いて、それでも 母親に尽くしてくれていたの。衣装もフリーのプログラムもクリスマスもみんな私に捧げてくれてたの。知ってた？ねえ、知ってた？
She asked this, muttering. Did you? Did you? Did you? I honestly can't say that I did. All this time I've lived as a slave to money, seeing my sister as nothing but a tool.
一番になるって。
The apparition mutters again. With just a small push, she would hang herself.
哀れな母親のために自分だけが一番になってあげるって。私も嫌われ者だからって明るく笑ってたのよ、あの子。
When people are sad enough, they forget to cry.
嫌われ者だからって笑って。
I couldn't find a reply. The words wouldn't come. The only person in this world who could have sympathized with this woman, who could have reached out for her with compassion, the only person who could have been this woman's savior was Kanon. I see, Kanon. I smile wryly. You really are the king. You're sitting on a rather tiny country's throne. You've done well. Now hurry and come out. Show them. Show them your wish for your mother. Seta Makiko's free skate came before Kanon's, and it was nothing less than dignifying. The entire audience was galvanized by the time she had finished. Her score was announced, and it was just shy of a magnanimous 200 points. So grand was the applause that it seemed like the spectators' very lives depended on the clapping. Bouquets of flowers were tossed into the rink, and young girls on skates collected them. The new heroine of the ice, Seta, took her exit, and the arena quieted down. A gloomy, unpleasant silence followed, and then the announcement came. Kanon's turn. Okay. Coach Hilton had proposed that she abstain. Shortly before the match, during practice, her right ankle started to feel a bit odd. It wasn't a sprain or anything like that. However, as she used her right foot as a pivot to spin, pain steadily gnawed at her nerves. It was most likely a result of twisting when Ikuko pushed her away from the car yesterday evening. Her stamina was also a concern. She didn't exactly sleep well last night. The 4-minute free skate demands quite a bit of stamina. Even Kanon, who ran 3 miles around the arena every day, often got headaches from lack of oxygen after a performance. The audience's reaction to her appearance was cold. The maelstrom of applause was something entirely of the past. Now Kanon suffered a downpour of glances filled with disdain and scorn. Their eyes were dripping with malice and bore the look of wolves eagerly, excitedly awaiting a feast with anticipation. If this weren't Japan, the arena would have long been filled with a booing by now. As Kanon skated out to the center of the rink, she calmly analyzed her own situation. If she loses, it's all over. Forget about the Olympics. She won't even make it to Worlds. She's already caused such a stir. She may be deserted by the union, or even stripped of her federal scholarship. But what about her mother? Kanon recognized that there was something strange about her last night. Her madness was akin to being thrown overboard from an already capsized ship into an ocean of sin. If Kanon loses this competition, Ikuko will likely lose her mind. Her pulse hastened, and her skin was attacked by a frothing sense of fear. The stagnant, chilly air crossed horrifically at the stifling silence. Standing alone in the center of the gleaming ice, Kanon couldn't help but feel cornered. But at the same time, she thought about whose fault it was that it had come to this. There was no need to even think. Kanon came to a decision. The music will begin soon. While entering her initial pose, Kanon slowly closed her eyes. She decided in an instant. Her anxiety about her right ankle, her fatigue from a lack of sleep, her pulse so violent that she could hear it, everything, she drove everything from her mind. She decided to offer up a prayer. She placed this prayer of gratitude and love alongside this famous piece. Kanon's chapter. Songs my mother taught me. Oh, this is the title. So you don't get it until now. Whoa. Oh, goody. What is this? As a beautiful melody flowed from the piano, Kanon turned aside and sprang into action. Kanon attuned herself to the opening of the piece and thought only of her mother, her foolish, helpless mother. She raised her head and looked up toward the sky. As she skated, she filled her chest with wishes and desires. The first jump was rapidly approaching. She made an approach run all the way to the wall and concentrated the entirety of her focus into the tip of her left outside edge. Double axel. As the piano sent a chord spinning loudly through the arena, Kanon launched into the air. She made 2 effortless rotations while airborne and landed face backwards. For someone like Kanon, who can make 2.5, or even 3 rotations, it was much like a warm-up. Or so she thought. She had made light of it in her arrogance. A dull pain shot through her right ankle. She thought of it as an appropriate punishment and silently endured it. She skated gently, softly over the ice, as if to avoid waking her sleeping mother, as if to protect the eternal sleep her mother had endured since her father had abandoned them. Her execution was flawless. Nevertheless, the applause was sparse, like a praise sung from obligation. But that was the best Kanon could hope for. Who would clap for a girl like her? Hers was the story of a petty mother and a selfish daughter. One could even call it repulsive. Kanon simply apologized in her heart. While performing a graceful step sequence, Kanon addressed her mother. Hey, Mom, I'm about to do the combination jump we used to practice together. The first time Kanon had been able to successfully land the Lutz, her mother cried her eyes out. In the moment that followed, the Lutz that Kanon had intended to cut ties with the other day came back to her. As she skated into the jump, she begged her right leg for cooperation. There's no helping it, Kanon-chan. You really are so spoiled. She heard her mother's voice, and it materialized as a 3-rotation combination jump. The ice shavings glittered like rhinestones near Kanon's feet. We can always make more money, Kanon-chan. She skated forward again, this time drawing near to the judges, and slightly shook her head for a reason only she could possibly understand. Money? Kanon executed a combination spin before the judge panel. She leaned on one edge and spun at high speeds, drawing a circle in the ice, all the while shifting her posture and position, readjusting her balance each time. Mom should pay more attention to her spending. While giving thanks in her mind to the judges who work on meager salaries, Kanon ever so naturally demonstrated a very vivid Y spin. Alright, Mom. Her right ankle was strained from the spin, and it cried out in pain. Mom, it's coming up next. Watch closely. She focused her concentration once more onto a technique that was considered impossible for women in Ikuko skating days. She had no choice but to do it. It was the only way to win. Not against Seta, against herself. It was the only way to defeat a girl who had been spoiled by her mother from birth. And as Kanon was being spoiled, Kanon was also spoiling her mother. While gliding backwards, Kanon nailed her toe pick into the ice, violently as if scolding her mother. This was where her submitted program had listed a triple. It was at that moment. A thunderous roar shook the arena. Kanon's solo jump was high enough to pierce the heavens. The moment she launched into the air, the tranquility which had reigned up to that point vanished, and ferocity filled the emotional vacancy in the air.
4回転トーループ
Oh. Quadruple! Toe loops are considered rather simple among all the jumps. But if you're talking about a quad, then it's a completely different story. It's considered more difficult than even the triple axel, which only a handful of women can do in the entire world. It's also worth more points than 2 triple toe loops combined.
4回転はやるなって
Ikuko-san spoke up from my side in a shaky voice.
やるなって言ってたの。私が足腰に負担がかかるからって、やらなくても十分勝てるからって、そうやって甘やかしてた。
I had no words. What a girl. Skaters are free to make changes to their program before or even during the performance. But in most cases, that simply involved reducing triple jumps to doubles for sure or safer points. No successful 4-revolution jump has ever been landed in an official match by a woman. Kanon had set her mind on perfection in this, the 11th hour. She intends to win. And points were not the only thing that Kanon had obtained. Wild, feral, torrential voices of astonishment fell onto the ice.
すっげえ。
なんか違わないか？
あ、いつものフリーと全然違う。
気持ちが入ってるっていうか別人じゃん。あれ本当に浅いカノンか？
The atmosphere changed. I was proud. My sister had showed me the world's first execution of this incredible maneuver. Kanon had just finished her 3-jump combination. Double axel, double loop, double loop. That leaves just one last jump. The second half of the performance was rapidly approaching. She earnestly endured the pain of her injury while wearing an affectionate smile. Oh, it hurts! Her miraculous quad jump sent a shock all the way to her hips. She had pushed it a bit with that technique. Her knees creaked in a nearby dizzying, throbbing pain. It was a mystery how her right ankle still managed to glide over the ice. Even still, I must answer to this applause. Up until now, Kanon had practically ignored the audience. She had thought of them as nothing more than an ignorant bunch that would just fall all over her after she showed them some difficult maneuver. But they were pure. They put forth a decent amount of money to witness today's event out of nothing but a love for skating. If that wasn't the case, then how else would you explain these grand cheers? Despite how much they hate me, they're still sending me such warm shouts. Kanon almost cried for the urge to apologize to the audience. It was miserable, but in the place of tears, she wore a smile and held her chin high in pride. As long as this 100 times 200 foot ice rink is here, Kanon will strain her utmost strength in order to satisfy them as a figure skater. Just then, though she had known beforehand which seat her brother would be in, it was still quite fortuitous. In the middle of a straight line step sequence, she caught a glimpse of her mother in the stands for an instant. Songs my mother taught me, in the days long vanished. Seldom from her eyelids were the teardrops banished. The program was Songs My Mother Taught Me. This was the musical selection that had caused such a stir during the NHK Trophy in the finals, the piece we had all thought would never compliment as I Kanon. A non-vocal arrangement of Dvorak's tune flowed over the ice. The theme of this piece is, very simply, gratitude toward one's mother. The mother rubbed her hands together and sobbed for her daughter. As if reciting some prayer, she cried in a subdued voice. The mother, a woman who had become an empty husk, mustered all of her spirit to dedicate a prayer. There was no doubt that Kanon was suffering on the ice from that quad jump. Only she never broke her smile. She showed not a single shard of weakness. Kanon expressed her gratitude for her mother with her facial expression, her toe pick, and everything in between.
Kanon-chan! Kanon-chan!
Alright, Kanon. Your last jump is waiting. I learned something from my studying. Jumps performed in the second half are worth 10% more points. One's stamina has begun to wear out, so doing anything impressive late in the program is a harsh feat. Only the king would even dream of pulling off what she's about to do. Go for it, Kanon. Bring the triple axel, the flower of skating, into the heat of the finale. Good. The tension caused me to bite my lip. Hang in there, Kanon. The arena was dazzling. Kanon's consciousness was already faint. By now, one could say her body was just performing on its own. Why? How is it that she's still standing? How can she still be performing this high-level flying spin combination so happily? Her world spun like a top.
もうスケートやめたい。
一体どうしたのカノンちゃん。
だってつまんないんだもん。
どうして？この前の競技会も勝ったじゃない？
勝っても楽しくない。楽しいのはお母さんだけ。
お母さんが楽しいのはダメなの？ 母さんとっても嬉しいのよ。
だってお母さん、自分が自慢したいだけだもん。
自慢しちゃダメ。
それは。
カノンちゃん、これから先ね、カノンちゃんが有名になったらもっともっといろんな人が自慢したがるわよ。
そうなの？
私もそうだったの。大会の偉い人、偉い人の親戚、会社の人、みんなカノンちゃんを自分のために利用するわよ。
だったらなおさらやだ。
それでもそれだけじゃないのよ。
意味わかんない。
じゃあ意味がわかるまで続けてみたら？
何それ？
さあ練習しましょう。
もういいよ。お母さんには何言っても無駄だね。
She finally understood. A moment ago, she happened to glance at a sign among the spectators. There was a disgusting-looking penguin drawn on it. Disgusting. Someone with long, disheveled hair had taken advantage of the loud applause to stand up and shout. She discovered the sight of her mother shedding tears. During her step sequence, the spectators sent her applause in tempo with the music. Her 4 minutes were nearly up, and her program was coming to an end. She had no regrets. Even if she had done so begrudgingly, Kanon was happy that she kept skating. Even if she was just the object of her mother's vicarious lifestyle, even if she was enabling this greed of her sponsors, the applause right here, in this crowded arena, was the real thing. The piece was drawing to a close. Her eyes were moist and her tears fell, glittering in the light. While crying with a smile, Kanon put her all into the last launch. She wept. Kicking away the person she had been until now, she jumped toward her mother. Eventually, I too will become a mother. And when I teach my child this song, teach each melodious measure, the tears will oft, just like my mother's, fall from my memory's treasure. Oh. What a way with words. I couldn't stop my trembling. There was a stifling silence. In those 4 short minutes, a musical selection had been filled to the brim with soul. After finishing her performance, Kanon took a brilliant final pose. She spread her arms out to the heavens and stood stone still, like a statue. Even from back here, I could tell she was crying. Suddenly, the ground shook. Kanon was bathed in tears and applause so feverish that the ice itself seemed to shake. People stood with amazement on their faces, clapping to the limits of their strength. Not a single person shirked her standing ovation. No, wait, there was one. Only one other person stood unmoving, like Kanon. She was almost like an infant. At this very moment, something occurred and reborn within each of her songs. I too was uncharacteristically unable to suppress my feelings. It really was exactly like the songs my mother taught me. Kanon's perfect, genuine expression had left the audience even more enamored. Kanon, is this colossal ovation reaching you? Or have you already exhausted all of your strength and lost consciousness? Just as I was thinking that, without being able to thank the spectators who grabbed hold of her chair, Kanon crumpled to the ice. I suppose it wasn't exactly a surprise for her to pass out like that. Tension and urgency ran through the arena. Everyone shouted out in concern for Kanon's well-being. Kanon, Kanon-chan, Kanon! Then, faster than I could run to the gate at the bottom of the stairs, the silhouette of someone rushing out crashed through it. She screamed like a newborn fresh from the womb as she jumped onto the ice. Of course, with the low friction, she wasn't able to approach steadily. She fell and clumsily hit her head. But not a single person laughed. She struggled her way to her daughter. The one to embrace Kanon without delay was neither Coach Hilton nor the ringside medic. The audience was boisterous at the sudden commotion, but the entire arena eventually filled with warm applause. Kanon left the ring supported by her mother. The scores were a bit delayed, probably because of Kanon's collapse. The drawn-out tension was nauseating. The kiss and cry was visible on the arena's jumbotron. Kanon was gloomy. She looked vacant. She didn't approach Hilton as he stood near her. She seemed to entirely forget his existence. The arena's attention was poured entirely into the announcement of the scores for a tremendous performance. There were no misses in Kanon's performance. Even the top skaters in the world tend to make 1 or 2 misses during a long free skate. Minimizing the resulting penalties is key to victory. Some people sitting around me who seemed to be skating experts were also clamoring about Kanon's flawless performance. Plus, it was a program of the highest difficulty. It had 2 triples in a row and a triple axel in the second half. Kanon had even demonstrated the feat of the quad. Her Achilles heel, musical interpretation, and performance/execution were also quite a different story from the usual. Just watching Kanon's free skate performance had already convinced everyone that her score would far exceed Seta's.
あのクアドラブルで基礎点プラス5だろ。
ああ、最後のトリプルも加点されてんだろ。
スピンは全部レベル4だと思うし、こりゃひっくり返ったな。
間違いねえ。200点超えるぞ。
I agree. Summed with yesterday's short program, she'll exceed 200 points. Just then, the long-anticipated announcement came. The applause settled.
朝日さんの得点。
The announcement continued on next in English. There was a moment of tension. Kanon was still in a daze. The announcement seemed to last an eternity. The arena tried to endure the tension with applause.
20点。
The applause grew silent like a wave.
77.42。
Oh, that's good, right? At that moment, the wall was wrapped in marbling voices that led to a rumble in the ground. Kanon didn't move an inch. It was a terrific score. She exceeded Seta's technical score by over 10 points. I was thrown along with the atmosphere and cheered some myself. Alright, next is her program component score. Everything is decided by the sum of the technical and program component scores.
プログラム構成点。
Please!
61.21。フリースケーティングの得点。138.63。
Oh, as Kanon's personal best had just been updated, the total score was reported. It was drowned out by the loud cheering, and even the booming announcer's voice seemed to be far away. But the next moment, I rose from my seat.
総合第1位です。
Kanon made a comeback victory over Seta by 1 point. 1 point! It was like with her tears ran down her cheek. Oh, she had a kind release so smile. The arena overflowed with an unprecedented ovation, blessing Kanon. I had sweat, and I finally took a breath. What a girl. Okay. Luigi and the rest suddenly ran to meet me.
やってくれたのやってくれたのすごいよ本当涙出てきちゃう
Yes, he did it. Everyone jumped around in celebration.
いやよフルちゃんは分かってたぜどう考えてもカノンが勝つってな
得点が発表されるまで死にそうな顔してましたよね まあまあ
The whole audience was as excited as you could see. Some people were even moved to tears.
どうして
Oh, that's cute. Again, as Igonzo appeared wearing an undiscerning expression. How like that, Father? If everything's just like you, you let that coach smile.
さすがに見事だ。
He says these words and laughs loudly. I defeated Gonzo, and it feels pretty good, honestly. We're laughing out of happiness, right? Kanzo shook his head like he was enjoying himself.
何を勘違いしている京介。
What? What are you talking about? The scores have already been announced. What could possibly... Kanzo interrupts my words.
それでも負けるが必要よ。
I see the anger in his eyes and freeze up. It wasn't the female announcer from earlier. A stream of unrest flowed through the atmosphere. A man was suddenly on the intercom, introducing himself as a tournament executive.
ただいまの採点に技術役員のコンピュータートラブルによるミスが発覚いたしました。
I realize my face is going pale.
再度採点した結果、浅井カノン選手の技術点の修正を余儀なくされたことをここにお伝えいたします。正式な得点は 75.12 との審判団の結論が出ました。
She went down over 2 points. Wait, that means... the difference of 1 point between her and Seta.
従いまして、プログラム構成点も
So emotional. At each shout, the arena fills with unprecedented chaos. They were shouting and cursing everywhere.
くさまれ全員首にしろ
So the spectators start throwing things onto the ice, and the security guards try to calm the crowd down.
皆様にはご理解いただきますよ。何卒
AG started kicking up a fuss with bloodshot eyes.
マジありえねえから2点も減るとかこれ絶対不正だから
Cheating? Are you saying there's someone manipulating the score?
間違いねえよ今から配られるスコア見てくる絶対どっかのスピンかステップのレベルが下げられてる
AG took off. Kanzo spoke up calmly.
というわけだ、京介。
But why? I still couldn't believe it. But wasn't the new system supposed to make it harder for judges to rig the scores?
いくら制度が変わろうと、そこに人の手が加われば、いくらでも不正は起こる。
The arena was filled with nearly slanderous suspicion.
レベル3だ嘘だろあの Y 字が
Apparently, a level 4 spin had been reduced 1 level. There were also several other suspicious points. The technical executive has the key role of watching it in slow motion and assigning a base point value to each element.
そうだな。
I had heard that they are accompanied by experienced judges and coaches. Heck, supposedly 2 people are paid just to watch him do his job.
それがどうした？
Gonzo held on to his calm to the very end. Ridiculous. They're obliged to leave the judged video behind as evidence, aren't they?
だから、機械が壊れただのとほざいたのだ。
My eyesight darkened in despair. But the media should have captured the performance with their cameras too. Just that should be enough too.
たとえ全ての日本人が不正を訴えたとしても、審判団の決定は絶対だ。
Man, I had nothing left to say.
今は審採点方式への移行が始まったばかり。カスどもの言い訳はいくらでもある。
So essentially, the truth will remain hazy.
カノンちゃんそんなひどいよ
Suzuki slumped against the wall, crying. Usami also wore a sharp look, as if trying to endure something. The spectator's eyes suddenly focused on the skating rink.
お願いします
Seta Makiko was shouting from the ice.
もう一度正確な採点をお願い
Kanon's rival pleaded in the direction of the official seats, disregarding her own position. Even in the participants' eyes, the judging was way too strange. Kanon, I mutter in shock. I see you back there, Ichi. Leaving so soon? Ichi's face strains in anger.
決まってんだろうが、今から世界中のありとあらゆる掲示板に爆撃を行う。
Are you flipping it? Just give it a rest. My feeble voice is shaken away.
カノンがかわいそうだろうが。
Ichi had begun to tear up, and I couldn't stop him. What's he going to do? What he's going to do isn't praiseworthy, but I understand his feelings. I wanted to run into the staff room and wring the necks of the jerks behind this. I clenched my fists in anger as I desperately tried to keep it from exploding out of my lips. Because...
浅井さん、今のお気持ちを。
The camera flashes bathe Kanon, who stands dumbfounded.
結果2位ということですが。
The reporters know instinctively that it was a setup.
納得されていらっしゃいますか？
She looks soulless. Kanon's magnificent performance, her wishes for her mother, weren't rewarded. Kanon emotionlessly shook her head.
一言だけいいでしょうか。
The crowd of paparazzi gathered around her in anticipation.
私、バカで、何言うかわからないんですけど、一言だけ。
The one impacting statement of figure skating's #1 troublemaker. A tear slides down Kanon's cheek.
私が、未熟だから、負けたんです。
え？
It was obviously a setup. The whole of Japan thinks so. Aren't you suspicious? Aren't you upset that you lost this fateful career-deciding match? Kanon forces a smile.
皆さん、申し訳ありませんでした。私が悪いんです。私が弱いから、得点が伸びなかったんです。
Then Kanon bowed.
5000円、ありがとうございました。
She's not at fault if she pleads for forgiveness. I bite my lip and watch that sad, sad girl. I want to scream. How can you stand by and let this happen? You're being used again. You gave an amazing performance, and you're being betrayed again. Kanon. God, Kanon. I feel completely helpless and nearly break down into tears. But I too should suppress this feeling of humiliation. Kanon is bowing down, apologizing and thanking people like that. She's subduing her despair and desperately holding her hand.
瀬田さん、どうもありがとう。そして、ごめんなさい。
Her nearly sobbing voice carried throughout the building. That spectacle struck a chord with everyone present. The spectators, who had come dangerously close to a riding wall, calmed down.
皆さん、今日は本当にありがとうございました。
She continued to bow her head as tears dripped to the ground. It was just too dazzling. The sight bore the sort of dignity that overwhelms those in its presence. Even if she did lose the match, Kanon may have gained something far more precious. And now that something has transformed into tears, making her whole body shine all the more radiantly in the spotlight. Well, she really gave it her all. I wonder how much longer I have. Kanon started coming to school again after New Year's. Okay, back to here. Alright, the time has come for another one of God's after school counseling session. I don't know.
Oh!
Today's guest is the popular figure skater, as Hi Kanon-san.
拍手わ
So, what's on your mind, Kanon-san?
ーどんなかな。兄がいるんですけど、なんかとっても怪しいんです。
どう怪しいの？
いつもパソコンしながら電話して、たまにふらーっと夜いなくなるんです。
女でもできたんじゃないの？
それはないと思うな。
なんで？
だって兄さんはのんちゃんのこと好きだもん。
おお。
なんか怪しげな密談みたいのしてるの。お金の話してるみたい。すっごい怖い声で。
一度聞いてみればいいんじゃない？
聞いた。そしたらゲームしてるとか言う。夜はダンスしに行ってるとか言う。
ダンス？
ヒップホップとか言ってた。
どう思われますか、神？
Come on, he's obviously telling the truth.
神はどれくらいヒップホップに詳しいんですか？
Well, they say yo after every sentence and stuff like that.
カノンちゃん、だいぶ騙されてるよ。
だよね。
でもあれだよね、なんか最近やたら突っ込んでくるよね。
そう思う？
僕のペットについても聞いてくるし。
Oh?
のんちゃんは幅広い視野を持つことにしたのです。
毒のあるヘビとそうでないヘビの違い、分かった？
コブラとそれ以外。
そうそう。
Are you really going to accept that answer?
面白い映画とそうでない映画の違い、分かった？
全米ナンバーワンヒットかどうか。
そうそう。
This sounds more like narrowing your horizons.
まあ、これからも僕がいろいろ教えてあげるよ。
はい、コーチ。
Coach, again? I wonder how they're going to end this.
面白かった。
まったく、いきなり参加したいとか言うからびっくりしたよ。
何してるのかなーって思ってね。
Well, we don't really do much.
じゃあ帰るね。
See ya. H, you left.
さーて兄さん、何しよっか。
Oh, that's right. You don't have practice today.
お話ししよう。
Sure, but talk?
授業終わって夜までポケーっと教室に残ってみたかったの。
Looking for a bit of youthful carpe diem? She smiles and nods.
兄さんは時間平気？
Well, I do have plans, but... Nah, not really. It is a holiday after all. But I think I'd rather spend time with Kanon.
ごめんね。ありがとう。
I want to continue to support Kanon. She's made quite a few breakthroughs since the Japan Championships. She's finally become able to feel gratitude and compassion for others like a normal person. We lounged in the empty classroom. Kanon suddenly opens the window and a smooth January breeze rolls in.
あ、瀬田さんからメール来た。
Oh?
明日ご飯行こうって。甘いもの好きだからな、あの子は。
You two are really friendly these days.
のんちゃんに譲るとか言ってたからね、世界。
Even though she obviously can't do that.
だから金メダル取ってこいって言っといた。そしたら次のオリンピックは3枠になるから。
With her ability, she could easily pull that off. At the moment, there are two popular female figure skaters in Japan. One is Seta Makiko, who took first in this year's Grand Prix of figure skating in the Japan Championships. The other is this carefree girl before my eyes. Are you preparing for the Olympics now?
出れればね。
Surely you will. If 3 skaters get to participate, then you've got to be one of them.
そうかな。今いろいろ議論されてるみたいだけどね。
You'll make it. Definitely.
あ、うん。
That's what Papa said, anyway. Alright, that's a lie. He didn't. Yes, I made up my mind. After that day, I did everything in my power to determine the truth behind the scandal. I eventually learned that the sponsors backing Seta had something to do with it. However, that's not something to bother the skaters over. That kind of battle is best left to scum like me. When do you go to America? Is it the day after tomorrow? I suddenly bring up a topic we've been avoiding in a lonely voice.
うん。寂しくなるね。
I really wish I could go with you, but
大丈夫だよ。お母さんがいるから。
after the incident at the Japan Championships, Ikuko-san was apparently bedridden for a week. The cause seemed to be something mental. She was probably just worn out, and I can't say I blame her. After all, she had to purge herself of all the dirt that had accumulated within her all these years.
お母さんはただのお母さんとしてついてくるって。
I see.
でも寂しいよ。
Whoa. She gives me a hug, and the sweet smell of her hair wisps up to meet me.
兄さん、何も言わないの？
What?
だって今までは離れろとか言ってたじゃない。
I figured I'd let it slide, seeing as no one else is here.
だね。
Kanon silently stares at me.
のんちゃんは幸せ者だ。
She is? You are?
兄さんを独り占めにしてる。
That's not fair. I have to share you with millions of fans.
それを言っちゃおしまいなわけだよ。
She puffs out her cheeks a little, and I softly kiss her lips.
バカ。兄さんはなんか上手だからムカつく。
Well, I am Yakuza. Bet Yakuza, that is. I thought it was pretty witty, if I do say so myself. I guess she just wasn't paying attention or something.
じゃあもっとギュってして。
Oh, and now the time has come for her departure. We're saying a temporary farewell. After her training, she'll be right back at my side. Kanon politely greeted the reporters who came to see her off, and then raised her arm in a grandiose wave.
じゃあ行ってきまーす。
What a cheerful smile. The devil in Kanon's heart is no longer. This girl has finally overcome her weakness and will surely continue to leap forward long into the future.
兄さん、じゃあね。
Oh, yep.
ちゃんと電話するね。
You got it. A calm smile hung from the corners of my mouth.
ありがとう兄さん。これからもいっぱいごめんなさいだよ。
Leaving me with these words, she bowed her head quietly. I just shook mine ambiguously. Kanon's battle is still far from over. This departure is a beginning rather than an end.
バイバイ。
My sister waved energetically once more and left. Kanon, who had been my sister only in name up until now, had become someone I couldn't live without. I returned her wave in the same fashion, bidding her farewell. Fight on, Kanon. Oh, cool. What? What? Inaccurate. Oh, interesting. Can I read this? The presentation of figure skating within this game is somewhat inaccurate. Miki Ando, Japan, successfully landed a quadruple salto in the 2002 ladies competition, and the revealing outfit Kanon wears could lead to score penalties. The sport as presented here is merely the projection of figure skating into the world of Descensional Mao, the devil on G-string. Oh, well, it was a pretty good story. For sure. Wow. That was interesting. Pretty special. Creative. For sure. Canons are out. Cool. This story is doing some very interesting things I haven't seen in other literature. I can't wait to see what they're going to do next. Bye.